Okay, well, we'll call the meeting to order, the March meeting of the Nisswa City Council. If you all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're short today. Two folks, the mayor is ill, and Mr. Johnson was out of town, or he was not going to make this one. Anyway, first item on our agenda is the consent calendar.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Open forum. This is your public comment section. This is anyone that has anything to bring up that may or may not be on the agenda tonight. If it is on the agenda and you want to bring it up when we're discussing that item, then it'll be a little more pertaining to the moment at hand. So please state your name and thank you very much. We'll have to look at
The item is on the agenda for the next P&Z meeting. It will be on there for either approval or denial of a dynamic sign. But between now and then, and until the sign is actually put up, we have what we call Christmas lights around it. And technically, she's right. Technically, we should ask have those taken down.
I never even realized it, and to be honest with you. I mean, I should have, obviously, but never even thought of it.
I'll move that we authorize Mr. Farrow to take the lights down off the sign. And
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So can we do like spotlights coming up at them, at that sign, or?
All lighting has to be downcast.
So it would have to come up
They'll
and
have to
point
come
down.
up and down.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a provision for upcast lighting.
If it's
Yeah.
shielded from the back so you can't see it as you're driving down the road, it just shines. Yeah.
It's probably not going to do any good because when he gets the permit, I assume that the dynamic sign will go in very quickly after that.
We hope so, but it could still take a while, so
Yeah.
we'll have to look at figuring out, maybe if we can see if we can light it the right way.
Okay. Did you have?
See, City Hall does respond.
I think I just unplugged you.
It's okay.
Yours is off. Stop.
next item on the open forum, if there's no one else that has anything, is a report by Schellner, Werner and Company. Did I say that right? Schellner. Okay.
I think you're plugged in. Why aren't they open forum?
There we go. All right, my name is Ryan Schmidt. I'm a manager with Schlenner, Wenner and Company. I've got Dan Sullivan with me. We both worked on the city's audit this year. Each of you should have the audited financial statements in front of you, as well as the report to members of governance. Those are the two handouts with the blue binding. Rather than flip through all of that and read through all of that, we're going to go through the presentation instead, which kind of summarizes all of that information. So with that, Dan's going to kind of start out here, and he's going to go over the more formal results of the audit, and then I'll take it from there and get into the numbers a bit. Okay, so on the first slide, we have kind of the audit process. We're describing what we do to get to to express an opinion. So we take the records that Jenny sends to us, and then through inquiry, analytical procedures, and detailed testing, we come to our opinion. This year, the city we're expressing an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, so that's what the city's looking for. So Jenny did a great job preparing the data for us this year, and I'll discuss more about the data as we move forward. But if you want to turn to the next page, the audit results. During that time, we look at the accounting policies. Were there any unusual transactions, any alternative treatments during the current year? No changes in accounting policies, no unusual transactions, no alternative treatments. The city does have one significant estimate, which is net pension liability and related balances. That relates to GASB 68, which Ryan will discuss in further detail in a little bit. And then also during the current year, did the city adopt any accounting policies or new accounting policies, and there were none. And if we flip to audit results continued, during the audit, we had no issues working on any of the or difficulties during that time. No disagreements with city or with the board, and there was no consultation with outside accountants. So we have a very good relationship working with the city and with Jenny for the first time this year, and then also with Maggie during the audit. So the next stuff I'm going to talk about are the internal controls. So there's control deficiencies, significant deficiencies, or material weakness. The city has what we consider 2 material weaknesses and 1 significant deficiency. For a city your size, and for most of our clients, these are all very common, and we'll discuss them here. It's limited segregation of duties, material audit adjustments are the material weaknesses, and the significant deficiency is financial statement preparation. So for internal controls, we have the council, the administrator clerk, and the deputy clerk. So the proper segregation of duties, which is very common for a city your size, it's just because with the amount of employees, there's one person doing multiple tasks, and there's can be some oversight on some of those duties while completing them. The next internal control finding is material weaknesses, or material audit adjustments. What material audit adjustments are is when we get the city's financial statements, we have to make adjustments and recommend adjustments to Jenny because if we didn't, the misstatement of the nature or of that nature could have a potential material effect on the city's financial statements. And then uncorrected misstatements pertain to just minor misclassifications or understatements of expenditures required to reconcile cash at year end. One thing we would note is that this year the number of material audit adjustments did decrease quite a bit this year. So with working with Jenny, a lot of those adjustments probably will go away in the future because of timing and everything this year. Everything came up quick, but we expect a lot of those to go away next year. Then internal controls, the significant deficiency. It's so with all that, we take all the information, the client data, plus Schlenner, Weiner and Company, and then we prepare the financial statements for the council. So it's just noting that we've prepped the financial statements for you, and so we just want to make the council aware that we have prepared them for you. Minnesota legal compliance. So the state has 7 different compliance sections that we look at. During the current year, we noted 2 compliance findings. The city, for some projects, failed to get the appropriate number of quotes for a municipal contract. And also when a project was completed, the withholding affidavit, or the IC-134, was not received for the completion of the project to pay out the final payments to that contractor. Any questions on those findings?
Just a question
Yeah.
on failure to obtain a sufficient number of quotes. I see in the printed material, you said the evaluation is between $25,000 and $100,000.
Yes.
You have to. Always thought it was 50,000 and up. Did they change that?
Yeah, that changed actually quite a while back. It was about 10 years ago that changed.
Well, I'm current.
Actually, and I think 50,000 was the threshold at which you're required to get formal sealed bids.
Right.
They increased that to 100,000. So now only contracts over 100,000 you need to get formal sealed bids. But between 25 and 100, that's where you still need to get competing quotes.
And you said we had 2 misstatements in that area? Just 2?
Yep, you had 2 projects. There was one for lift station pumps, and then there was another project for the paving of Villaview Drive. And I believe for both of those, there weren't any competing quotes. And they were both over that $25,000 threshold.
Does that include if we're going to purchase a vehicle and we go off state bid pricing?
No, that's an exception to the rule. If you go
Okay.
off state bid, the state already did the bidding.
Okay.
And they already got the quotes at the state level. So then they've satisfied that requirement, and now they push that down to you, and you're able to just go off the state bid without going under quotes.
Okay.
And if I could quickly, as a staff, we did talk about this, and we created a checklist and a process so that we could evaluate at what threshold, and then what would be the required steps so that we can kind of package each of these things going forward, and we'll have the documentation. So just, kind of crossing T's, dotting I's type of thing. So.
Okay.
And that withholding affidavit was a result of the final payment from the 2015 road project that we finalized end of last year. Trying to dig up paperwork from 2 years ago just was problematic with the contractor, so I don't think that one will be a problem going forward.
All right, with that, I'll get us into the numbers a little bit here. So this year, what we're going to kind of do is look at a trend analysis for each one of your funds and see what's been happening with your finances over the past few years. So this first graph here is just for the general fund. This is looking at 2015 through 2017, and then also comparing to the 2017 budget. The blue bar there is your revenues in the general fund. Red is expenditures. Purple is other miscellaneous sources and uses of funds, and then green is your fund balance. The one thing here that stands out to me right away is the growth in that green bar over the past 3 years. So it's nice to see that you've had a trend of growth in your fund balance. And that's, of course, the result of your blue bar, the revenues, exceeding your red bar there, your expenses. Comparing 2017 to your budget, your revenues were pretty close to what you budgeted. You actually had a bit more revenues than budgeted due to some state aids and some donations that you received in excess of budgeted amounts. And then the difference that you see there between your expenditures is actually due to that second bullet point on the right-hand side. I believe in the past, your general fund budget has included a appropriation for your debt service expenses, and your actual numbers here in your general fund do not reflect those debt service payments because those debt service payments come out of your debt service fund. So I guess my recommendation to you would be that going forward, budget for those debt service payments out of the debt service fund rather than out of the general fund. But overall, you had an increase in your general fund during 2017 of $288,000, and you ended the year with a fund balance of about $4.8 million.
But do you take out, then if I understand it correctly, the 484,000 really should be taken out of the general fund number to get an accurate
Yep.
number.
And actually, the revenues, the taxes that are levied that come in, and then that payment going out, all of that is outside of the general fund. That's all in the debt service fund. So really the only reason that you have a difference here looking at that red bar comparing 2017 to 2017 budget, that difference there, the reason your budget is higher is because your budget included a debt service appropriation, and then the actual numbers, the actual payments got coded to a different fund.
Does that also explain the green bar from 2016 to 2017?
Nope, that's completely
That's completely
not,
different.
that's not factoring in the debt service at all. That's
Okay.
That's
All right.
excluding all that debt service activity. And we'll look at the debt service fund in a little bit here.
Okay.
But before we do, if we flip to the next slide, here we've got the general fund balance, and this is looking at your unassigned fund balance, and we're looking at your unassigned fund balance as a percentage of your budgeted expenditures each year. And this is kind of a nice way to look at your fund balance because it allows you to compare yourself to cities of all sorts of different sizes. So what we do here is we look at your fund balance that isn't restricted or committed or assigned for any specific purpose. We divide it by your annual expenditures, and then we look at that change over time. And at the end of 2017, that percentage came out to about 226%, which is actually really strong compared to a lot of the cities that I've seen around your size. The OSA actually has a recommendation that this percentage be at least 50%, so you're well in excess of that recommendation. And you've had a growth, or a trend of growth there over the past few years. And if you don't like looking at fund balance, this is just cash. This is just normal cash. What's happening with your cash over the past few years. You've had a nice increase each year. Kind of reflects what's happened on the last couple slides that we've looked at.
Let's not give people the impression that we're sitting on $4 million of cash and we don't need to increase taxes.
Well, you know, it's all about what you've got planned. If you've got road projects coming up, if you've got things coming down the pipe, then you're going to need that cash. So it's up for you. It's up to you to determine how much cash you need. I'm just here to give you the numbers. All right, looking at the next slide. Here we've got your other governmental funds. We've got your debt service fund that we were talking about, and then all of your non-major, all your smaller governmental funds, we lump all of those together. So your non-major funds, that would be your fire fund, park and rec, community center, EDA, TIF funds, and your capital project fund. And there's a calculation we do that determines which funds are major, which funds are non-major, but those are all the ones that qualify as non-major, so we wrap those together. Your debt service fund, your revenues, which is property taxes, came in right at that $484,000 approximately that we were talking about on the previous slide. So you pretty much broke even for the year in your debt service fund because that's planned out that way. Your non-major funds, the majority of the activity that you see there relates to the fire fund and the park and rec fund. That makes up the vast majority. Then I believe that other sources that you see there in the purple bar, that's a transfer that you make from the general fund each year to subsidize the activity in those funds. So with all of that factored in, you had an increase of about $52,000, $53,000 in your non-major funds for the year. And here we've got just a cash trend analysis again for those funds. So your debt service fund is actually the one at the bottom, That one held steady during 2017, didn't change much. And then all of your non-major funds together, that's up at the top. And that bumped up a little bit, primarily due to that transfer from the general fund that I mentioned. Okay, so that's it for your governmental funds. Next, we'll take a look at your remaining funds, which is your liquor fund and then your sewer fund. Looking at your liquor fund over the past 3 years, it's a graph pretty similar to the ones that we were looking at for the general fund, but the blue is your operating revenues, the red is your operating expenses, purple is your change in net position, so ideally you're trying to keep that purple above that 0 mark each year to have a positive change in net position, and then green is your ending net position. So nice thing I see right off the bat is that each year your operating revenues have exceeded your operating expenses. You can see they're getting a little closer together there in 2017. Your revenues held about the same, but your expenses increased a bit. I looked into what caused that a little bit. It looks like the biggest increase was related to wages and salaries. And then also, there's a pension expense. You know, Dan talked about how the one estimate that we consider to be significant in your financial statements relates to your net pension liability, that GASB 68 that came out a few years back. And that's where the state decides how much of PARA's overall net pension liability they should assign to the city. And then they pretty much give you that number each year, and if that liability goes up, then you have to recognize more expense. Well, as a result of the numbers the state gave you this year, you had about an additional $85,000 of expense in your liquor fund, which is just reflecting that increase in that liability. So that's the majority of what's causing this on-paper increase in expenses that you're seeing. Any questions on that before I move on?
You donated about 4 or 5 pages going all the way through the results about the retirement fund, PRA, and our liability.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said $85,000 just for 1 year. That's our liability, but what happened? That seems low from what I've been hearing.
That's not the liability. That's the increase in your expense for the year.
Okay.
So that's how much your expenses increased.
Liability is beyond that, but it's got to be a very huge number for a small city, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is very big. The statewide PRA has a net pension liability. I believe it's around 7 or 8 billion now is how underfunded the plan is. So they take this giant number and they allocate it out to all the cities, all the employers throughout the state of Minnesota. And then in your proprietary funds, because you report on the full accrual basis where you have to record these long-term liabilities and these long-term assets, in your proprietary funds, you have to report a piece of that liability. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I'm sure it's in the millions. I'm sure if you were to look at the actual detail in the financial
Just for our city.
Just for your city. Yeah.
So if the state decides to change the way they do the plan, or they go belly up for some reason, or there's a problem, we're on the hook for at least that much, unless something else happens.
Yeah, you know, I honestly don't believe that would be the case. If the plan went belly up, there's no way they could ever collect all that money. It doesn't. I mean, in my opinion, that net pension liability should just be a footnote disclosure. It shouldn't actually be in your numbers. And that's how it used to be until about 3 years ago. And then they decided to pass this new standard, GASB 68, where they make you record this full liability on your books. You still make the same contributions to PARA through your payroll that you always have. So nothing's really changed. It's just now they make you record this liability. The law hasn't changed. You're still making the same contributions. If we've had entities that go out of business that we audit, and they had this big liability on their books. Well, if they go out of business, that liability just goes away. They're not actually paying it. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but we're required to put it in your financial statements. Anyway, so for 2017, you actually had a decrease in your net position of $109,000 in your liquor fund, but you have to keep in mind that that's factoring in a $235,000 transfer to the general fund. So if you were to exclude that $235,000 transfer to the general fund, you actually would have had an increase of over 100,000. Looking at the next page, we've got the same sort of graph for your sewer fund. Activity here was very consistent with prior years. Your net position didn't really move a whole lot. It increased 86,000, so I guess it was a fair increase there. Revenues, operating revenues are pretty close to your operating expenses, and you ended the year with a net position of $3.36 million. Next page shows your cash trend for the last 3 years for both the liquor fund and the sewer fund. Sewer fund is the one at the top in the red. You've had an increase in cash each of the last couple years. And the liquor fund has had a decrease in cash for each of the last 2 years. From 2016 to 2017, your cash in the liquor fund decreased $79,000, but that's factoring in that you did make a $235,000 transfer from the liquor fund to the general fund. And one more slide with numbers here. I just throw this in there to show you what's happening with your debt. This is your long-term debt that's outstanding. So this is your bonds that you've issued for various projects. The top line there, that's your governmental funds. So this is in your debt service fund, what your debt service fund is financing. This is being financed via property taxes. And then the one at the bottom there, that's your sewer fund debt, and that's being financed via sewer charges. That's all I have for numbers. Just one final slide here for you. We always have some recommendations for you at the end of the audit, and these aren't findings, these aren't anything formal, these are just simple take it or leave it recommendations. We've got one that carried over from last year. We are recommending that you maybe explore some options with your POS systems at your liquor stores. See if there's a way that you can take those freight costs when you purchase an item and you get things delivered to allocate those freight costs to all the different inventory products. It really helps you nail down your profit margin on each of your inventory items, and helps you control your inventory a little bit better. The other items we have here, we have a couple new recommendations, and I know Jenny mentioned one of these is going to be taken care of pretty quickly here. Excess TIF funds for some of the TIF districts that have been decertified in the past few years. I think there's 3 or 4 TIF districts that have been decertified within the last couple years, and every time a TIF district is decertified and there's some excess funds that are remaining in that district, those funds need to go back to the county, and then the county takes them and just redistributes them to some to the city, some to the school probably, and when the city gets that redistributed money, then it can go into your general fund. So as of right now, this excess TIF money that's on your books, you can't use it for anything. But if you pay it back to the county, they'll redistribute a piece of it, and then you can put it into your general fund. And Jenny's got all the information on that. And finally, the last couple years when we've done our count, we do an inventory count each year at the liquor store, and that's just one of our typical audit procedures to make sure that your inventory is accurate. And the last couple years we've had a few differences out at the pickle when we've done our count, where we actually find more items than what's on the inventory listing. And we've kind of been trying to figure out what's causing this, what the problem is, and we're thinking that it might be due to the fact that when you go out there, if you're looking for an inventory product, it might be stored in 4, maybe 5 different locations out there, different various areas throughout the store. So maybe consolidating inventory items to be in fewer locations would help you get a little bit of a better handle on your inventory listing at the end of the year. Just an idea, something to consider to have your inventory listing be a little more accurate at the end of the year. That's all I've got. Any questions?
Last year, we had one city clerk, or assistant city clerk. This year, we have an administrator clerk and an assistant. So we have 2 people watching the books. That goes to the segregation of duties question you bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Is that enough to satisfy you, or is that just a step in the right direction?
It's a step in the right direction, definitely. Yeah, you know, it's really hard to fully eliminate that lack of segregation of duties finding. You know, we really don't have any cities that are even near this size that have been able to eliminate that finding, because if you've got somebody who has complete access to your accounting records and then also has the authority to modify those records, when somebody has that much control, you can't fully eliminate that finding. It's great that you can put checks and balances in wherever you can, and you can do as much oversight as you can. That's great, and we highly recommend that you continue to do that. But as far as fully eliminating that finding, it's pretty hard to be done without having at least one, maybe two, even three more staff. I mean, we'd have to look at it. And you know, another way of looking at that is that it's something that we have to put in the financial statements to make the readers aware of the number of people that are involved with the accounting cycles. So it's something to keep in the back of your mind, but it's not something I would be overly concerned about having as far as a finding goes, just because it's so common. Anything else?
I don't. The ones I do, I'll just get with Jenny later.
Yeah.
And we will have the audit for approval under new business here shortly. So I just personally want to thank our auditors. It was a good week that they were here, and I think we made some good improvements, and we look forward to continuing that. So I'll reach out to them during the year if there's things that we want to look at and address. So.
Yeah, and I guess I do want to say we really enjoyed working with Jenny and Maggie. You know, this is one of our more enjoyable audits during the year just because they're so friendly and easy to work with. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, D, reports. City Administrator Clerk. Jenny?
Thank you. The first item I have tonight is just a quick personnel update. There was one part-time employee addition at the Spirits of Nisswa, so we're looking for approval for that.
Okay, personnel updates, Spirits. Ross?
So I'll make a motion that we accept the personnel update and accept the added hire at the Spirits.
I'll second that with a question. Does that take effect immediately or on the 1st of April?
This employee started in February. Timing was such that with my discussions with Brian, he says timing doesn't always meet up with council approvals, and he's had that discussion previously. But certainly if there are questions about that, we can talk about
So
it.
it should be retroactive then?
Yes.
Retroactive to data hire.
Yeah, that sounds good. Usually
I'll
we,
amend
it's kind of
my
a
motion.
implied.
Okay,
Be retroactive to data hire.
fine.
Did you second?
Yep.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next.
The next item I have is a request for proposal, looking for council feedback and input for website hosting, design, and maintenance. As we've talked briefly about the past couple of months, kind of where the city was at as far as getting service with our current vendor that we're working with, and looking to get the city website updated and moving forward with that. I noted that I would be putting this together for the council to review. Tom Pearson and I have worked together the past couple days to try to get some feedback from our current vendor because they own our domain name at this point, and not having a way to get that back was a challenge. Tom reached out to them. They responded pretty quickly. And I had a conversation with our vendor today. At the end of the day, they're more than willing to do what we need to do as far as releasing the domain. when and if we need to do that. But I don't think that they will have the ability to do the work that we're looking for to get our website updated. So I would look to move forward with advertising for this request for proposal to get some other companies to get us some proposals for this work. And then at the time, we can pull our current domain name from our vendor and get it to the new company once we figure that out. So are there any questions on the details, wanting to get some feedback on that?
2 questions.
Go ahead, Don.
I see you want to go to cityofnisswa.org. Maybe I'm old. Shouldn't it be cityofnisswa.gov?
Typically, a .gov is more expensive
But
to
we're a
purchase.
government entity.
Yes. Typically, it's more expensive, but I can look at that. Now, we can potentially, based on my conversation today, we can keep the cityofnisswa.com, and we won't have to incur any more costs with that, which would be a positive thing. I was looking at having to go a different domain, but mostly from a price perspective was the cost of the .org versus the .gov.
Yeah, just if I had to type it in, I would just normally type gov on it, so
Right, absolutely.
as long as you're aware of that. And then down at about the middle, it says create a one-click newsletter sign-up button. Is this a placeholder for something you're anticipating in the future? A newsletter?
Having the option to do that, more from using the newsletter is kind of a catch-all for being able to send out agendas for meetings.
It's a placeholder then.
Yes.
Okay.
Park and Rec activities, easy for us to kind of blast out updates from the city.
Do we have any idea what we're looking at cost-wise or not until we get back with people that are interested in getting involved in it or bidding it out? Is that what we're,
I would say my best guess would be it's going to be kind of a, $5,000 to $10,000, just depending on how much we need to redo. So ideally, if we could have looked at working with our current vendor, that would have been less, because obviously the website is already there and they're making changes and not completely starting over. But it looks like we'll have to go a little more of a detailed route in that regard.
The Brainerd Airport is updating its website, and they're talking 5,000 to 6,000.
Okay.
Jenny, where did you get the wording for this proposal? I mean, is this something you just came up with on your own, or?
No, I didn't start it from scratch on my own, but I did find some proposals online from other Minnesota cities, other government, kind of some nonprofits I found online, and then just tried to piece together the things that would be applicable for us.
Okay. I mean, I thought it was very thorough. I was just curious.
Thank you.
On the thing of missing something, but I don't see anything that we're missing here, so I'm just curious as to where you gathered this.
Cut and paste.
I'll move we approve the request for proposals as presented.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Carried.
Thank you. The last item in my report is to appoint bank account signatories authorized to make electronic funds transfers. So what this is, and actually our auditors didn't touch on this, but this was a new statute applicable for cities that happened in 2017, and we need to distinguish. We have our bank account signatories, those who can write the checks and do that, but then we also need to establish that there are individuals that can authorize our EFT transactions, so mostly payroll-related items. And so my recommendation is to name the same individuals that are our signatories to make those transfers for 2018. Then we'd be in compliance from an audit perspective.
I'll make a motion that we accept the appointment of bank account signatories authorized to make electronic fund transfers for the calendar year 2018 as presented by Jenny.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Nothing else?
One quick update that I just wanted to let the council know. The police department is working through their body camera process, and that involves approving a policy and doing some of those things. We have that draft policy on our city website, and we will be looking to have a public hearing, which is required by this, I think by statute, at our April meeting for the council to hold to get any input from the public as far as the policy itself. So just want to let you know it's on our website, and anyone can send a comment or a question to our police chief, and it's available out there.
Have they secured a storage server or whatever that they need to hold all the video and stuff like that?
They are working on that as well to make sure that's up and running and backups are running appropriately, and that's part of that process.
Great, thanks. Anything else? Nothing? City attorney, Tom?
Nothing to report tonight.
Mark, city engineer.
Good evening. Just last week, we met with Public Works, went over a few items, survey has been completed for the 2018 roads. And at the April meeting, then the Public Works will be bringing in the preliminary, layouts, cross sections, and cost estimates, with the anticipation then, going forward to the May with the, getting authorized to bidding then at the May council meeting. So that was reviewed last week. Public Works Committee. We have a few other items that we talked about, but Jenny has those later on in the packet, so we'll wait till we get to those at that time.
Very good.
Yep.
On to new business. Under E, item 1, approval of the 2017 audited financial statements for the city of Nisswa.
Mr. Mayor, I would move the approval.
I would second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 2, the memo dated March 21st, 2018 from Jenny Max referent disbursement of TIF funds, council action required. Jenny, do you want to explain that, or do you guys?
No, I know. I'll move the request for the disbursement of TIF funds as presented in the memo dated March 21st.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Recommendation, item number 3 from the Liquor Committee, reference wage adjustments.
I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendations for the wage adjustments as presented.
I'll second that with a question. On the previous one, I said, is this effective April 1st or whatever? I was thinking of this one here because we have 2 people. Is the motion to make it effective right now or on the 1st of the month?
That's a great question. It can certainly be up to the council if April 1st is cleanest. That
Well,
might
I
make
was looking
sense.
at whatever's the cleanest
For you.
for staff.
Yeah. April, that sounds reasonable.
So I'll amend my motion to make it effective April 1st.
Second.
Just one item on that is, and I just was thinking, I talked to Jenny about this earlier too, is, I don't have a problem with it at all because it's hard enough to keep employees, but it would be nice if we could do this kind of stuff like one time, like in December, and then incorporate, you know what I mean, as we're
Yeah.
budgeting and that. So, sometimes it can't be helped, but, but I agree. It's hard enough to keep employees, and I happen to, but I did talk to you guys about it, to you guys. Talked to Jenny about it, and I talked to Mr. Farrell about it, so, anyway. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Number 4, memo dated March 21st from Jenny Max, reference vacation payout request, council action requested.
I would make a motion that we accept the memo for the vacation payout request from Police Chief Taylor as presented.
I'll second that with a comment. It's not costing the city anymore to make the payout, because if he took the vacation, we pay the same amount of money out basically.
Correct.
But in doing it this way, I think we should encourage employees to take vacations. They're there for a reason. They're not there to be a bank where you can go out and cash in your unused hours. I know that legally they can do that, but we really should encourage people to take vacations. I think it's good for them and good for the city.
Was there a reason why he didn't get a chance to use it? Did he say?
He didn't. I know 2017, well, I know that he onboarded one new officer, but that could have been part of it, certainly. But,
Yeah.
something I can make sure that all staff keep in mind. Definitely want them to take their time.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approval of a temporary liquor license and temporary beer license agreement for the Brainerd J.C.'s on April 28th, 29th, the 2018 Run for the Lakes.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Jenny, is this the famous run around the lake and get a free can of beer when you're done?
Yes, it is.
So it's a free beer. Okay, I did notice on the application there's no time limitation on here and that I could see, unless I missed it. It's just the 2 dates in the parking lot. I would think that if we're going to do it, we should have some reasonable limitations on the hours they can do that. I'd hate to have them
Sure.
partying till 2 in the morning or something like that.
Sure. And I believe, do we have some individuals here that could maybe speak to that? But I'm guessing it's probably structured really about when the races are happening, and once the races are officially done, the opportunity to have the beverages
Would
over.
it be unreasonable to say that the application expires 2 or 3 hours after the race ends or something like that? Would that be reasonable?
Absolutely. And there were the dates that you stated, it's April 27th and 28th.
Oh, I apologize.
Right.
That
Yeah.
was probably my typo.
The last runner has to be in by 3 p.m. So normally by 5, I mean, the latest, that would be, we're usually cleaned up, within.
2 hours
an
then.
hour after the last runner crosses the finish line. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll move approval of the application as presented by the Brainerd J.C.'s with the condition is that the license expires 2 hours after the end of the race.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Application for raffle permit, LG 220 from Brainerd Family YMCA.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application for raffle permit LG 220 from the Brainerd Family YMCA as presented.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approval of the City of Nisswa Fire Department budget.
You skipped 7.
Oh, I crossed one out too soon. Application for raffle permit, LG 220 from Nisswa American Legion Auxiliary.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move approval of it, subject to proof of the nonprofit status, which is not in the application at the present time.
I will second.
All in, or any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carried. Approval of City Council, or the City of Nisswa Fire Department budget and 2018 fire contracts. Sean here tonight. Okay. Was there any,
Am I correct that this has not been sent to the cities for approval?
They have received all of the contracts, just so that they had the information and they could forward it to their boards. But we would send executed contracts to them after our approval. And I just spoke with Sean Bailey today, and he would like to get all of the municipalities together and just meet. But in my conversing with them, sending them the information, they didn't seem to have any concerns over the budget or the contracts for this year.
So we haven't had, because usually we have a meeting
Yes.
with everybody, but we haven't.
We have not, but
Okay.
we have connected with them, and just based on schedules, it was, we'll get a meeting together. We just haven't had one yet.
Well, I'd move the 2018 Fire Department budget, fire contracts as presented, subject to the approval of the cities mentioned in the fire contracts, accepting the proposal too.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, all in favor recommend, or signal, motion?
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I don't even want to go down that road. Sorry, but I wonder how that comes across on the recording. Recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission reference the approval of meets and bounds subdivision application 00318 for Randy Johnson. Don, or,
I don't have any questions. I don't know if you do.
okay.
Desmond is here. If we have any questions on the information,
It
we can
was pretty
certainly.
straightforward.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission for the approval of the Mets and Bounds subdivision application 003-18 for Randy Johnson as presented.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Acceptance of installation bid for Nisswa Lake Park Picnic Pavilion.
Can I have a question on this one for the park board?
Matthew, can you
So-
answer some questions for us?
There were two bids, and were legal, and we found out from the audit we're legal on this, there were two, but the low bid was almost half of the other bid. And when it's such a disparity, it makes me wonder what's going on there. You have any feelings?
I do. Brad Arnold, my contact at High Tech, shared with me that this was back in December as I was reaching out to the Barato brothers, and there were three other local contractors that I worked with as well that were unable to supply a bid just due to their time, their schedule, and being too busy. But High Tech displayed a very strong interest in doing this for the community and shared with me that a portion of it would probably be an in-kind donation in regards to personnel time and costs and materials that would be required to do it. So I'm sure that there's part of that built into this number that they offered.
So the difference is basically the in-kind donation.
I would estimate that, yes.
Second question, it's a recommendation of you as the director and the Gull Lake Trail Steering Committee. Did the park board itself talk about this and make a recommendation?
That is actually a misprint.
Okay,
That should not be Gull Lake Steering Committee, Gull Lake Trail Steering Committee. That should be the Parks Board, the Park Advisory Commission.
okay.
I reused the document and didn't change that line. I apologize.
Okay.
One question I had was, I'm looking at High Tech, and you mentioned the in-kind, but Barato Brothers, it says they're looking at site clearing and restoration, and High Tech is not. Is that something they're going to do, or are we going to have to hire somebody to do that?
They were given the same parameters for the project based on the engineering
Okay.
specs from the manufacturer of the product, the pavilion that's going in.
Okay, because their thing specifically says not included any tree removal. That's why I was kind of worried.
That was an addition put in by the Barato brothers themselves. There is no tree removal to be done.
Okay. I didn't catch that when I
One note is that, Barato brothers did not come and do a site visit either.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that the city council approve the contract for the installation of a picnic pavilion at Nisswa Lake Park by High Tech Construction for the amount of $18,400 as presented in the memo from staff dated March 21st.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Acceptance of proposal for engineering services for the Gull Lake Trail project.
Just a question on that.
Yes.
This work is going to be done in two cities, Lakeshore and us. Is this just our share for within our city limits, and Lakeshore is going to do their thing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it includes public meetings? Who hosts those public meetings?
Well, there's going to be two, one in each community, partnering together because we are the fiscal agent for our future legacy grant, and that's what this is tied to, our grant application. We are doing it jointly between the two counties and the two cities that this trail is going to be going across. So we're going to be doing a combined one here in Nisswa and one in Lakeshore to make sure that the information gets distributed out to the communities. We have the flexibility of doing this probably within the next 6 to 10 weeks, depending upon how timing goes through with the engineers to get the materials to us. I guess that's where we're at right now. Getting the public meetings out there is certainly going to be a priority to our steering committee and to the. I know the city council has had some concerns about that, so we're going to make sure that this information gets out to them as soon as possible, out to the public, that is.
I have a question, but I should know the answer, but I'm not sure about it. Do we have to have a joint powers agreement for going ahead with this project and doing what we want to do tonight or not? I don't know.
Yes, and I've been in contact with the city attorney to work with us to get those joint powers agreements in place, number one, between the two cities, between Nisswa and Lakeshore, and then the partnerships with the counties as well, and that even extends to specifically to the county road, or the road department.
So that's coming.
That is coming, absolutely.
Okay.
It's on our radar. Go ahead, Tom.
Matthew, we're not near needing to do that work yet, though, right?
No.
You'll let me know?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and just to give the council an idea, we were really shooting to try to get this grant application for legacy funding completed this July. Based on the time frame of activities that's going to be required to do that, we've established that that's just not going to be attainable for us this year, so we are pushing that back to be a 2019 application for the, just so you guys are aware of that. And that really does give us a lot more flexibility in making sure that the city's activities to the public, that everybody's notified, that we're going to have several opportunities for people to provide feedback to the city in regards to from absolutely everything, from the trail location to we just get their feedback in general things for the project going through the community. So I think that's important to note that that application is going to be pushed back and that the construction is probably not going to happen in 2019 at this point.
And the amount that we're going to authorize tonight is reimbursable if we get the grant. If we don't get the grant, that's just out of our own pocket, correct?
Say that one more time, sir.
The amount that we're going to be approving tonight is reimbursable out of the grant if we get the grant, but if we don't get the grant, that just comes out of our own budget.
It would be part of our matching funds to the grant. It would not be reimbursable through the grant at this time. I am in the process of doing 3 grant applications for that reimbursement.
Okay,
Crow Wing Energized, Crow Wing Power Roundup, and the Initiative Foundation. So between those 3, I'm confident that we will be able to cover these funds.
okay.
Matthew, there's going to be 2 meetings, one in Lake Shore, one here.
At the minimum, John, yeah.
Okay, if somebody misses the meeting in Nisswa, the same information is going to be covered at the one in Lake Shore?
Yes, sir.
So basically, anyone in either community has 2 shots to...
Absolutely.
Okay, at least. All right, thanks.
I'll move city acceptance of proposal for engineering services for the Gull Lake Trail project to WSN in the amount of $9,800 as presented in the staff report dated March 21st.
I'll second that. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Recommendation from the Public Works Committee to approve, reference the approval of request for proposals for transportation services. This is basically the Grandview traffic study, correct? Or
Correct, yes. 77
Grandview, et cetera.
Yes, if I could, I provided an excerpt from the Public Works Committee meeting, so you could see some of the discussion that took place. Mark Holland did a great job at putting this RFP together for us. I did send this out to Grandview and to Crow Wing County for their feedback. I did speak with Tim Bray and Rob Hall today from the county to get their feedback. They thought it was, reflected the work that needed to be done, and they were supportive of this. We will add a reference to make sure that the firm provides us with the proper insurance documentation that we typically would request, when we hire for services such as this. Otherwise, they didn't have any concerns about it. I didn't get any specific feedback from Grandview, but we have had conversations with them over the last few months, so I think that they're comfortable with the process that we're taking for this at this point. But certainly, I or Tom or Mark could answer other questions if you have them.
Just a question. Desmond, refresh my memory. In the Planning Commission, over several months, Grandview representative has talked about this, and I thought that they said they were willing to pay the cost for doing it, the whole thing, the planning. If I'm not on the right track there, let me know. Yeah, if they're going to do it, why are we paying to do it?
It does say in here that Grandview will pay for it, though, Don.
Yeah.
On the first
It's
page.
expected that Grandview Lodge will pay for the
Right,
cost.
then why are we looking at it 9 to
Because
11? Is that the total? Or that's not what we're spending, right?
Correct. Grandview will likely reimburse us for this. They've given us a deposit
Okay.
since we're facilitating the process.
This is the upfront.
Correct.
Okay, it didn't say that exactly, that's why I was going, it's usually it confused me sometimes, so.
Am I right in believing we have to initiate the traffic study? Grandview really
It has to probably
I
go through
suppose
us, I
that's
would
true,
assume.
too.
would have to go through us anyway, right, Mark?
Yeah.
Well, and
Typically.
But that was really the county's, the county said it's a county road and it's a city street, So you really own it, and it was their position that it really should be done by the city and not a private, private corporation, so they technically do not own the home.
Right, because this is going to include Nokomis, West Linden, Forest, Woodward, 77 in Nokomis, and Roy Lake Road in Nokomis, and is it including the service drive off of Grandview in Nokomis, or at 77?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are
that's-
6 intersections that are included in the description.
Most of them are ours, so, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we approve the recommendation from the Public Works Committee on their request for proposal for transportation services to, for the not to exceed amount of $11,000.
I will second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Recommendation from Public Works Committee for the approval of WSN to complete and submit the application for bridge bond funding to the Minnesota Department of Transportation. This is in reference to the Hazelwood Bridge.
Yes, so basically, the city needs to place the bridge on the state list so that we can come up for, we can get funding at the time when that would be available to us. And WSN has offered to fill out the application, has provided an estimate, so we have an idea of what that might look like. But usually it will take some time, might even be a couple years, depending on how things go. So sooner the better that we get it on the list.
Another placeholder.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's also any monies we spend on this can be used as an
Reimbursed.
in-kind match for the bike trail.
There's no time limit once this is approved by the state for us to actually do the bridge, to complete the work?
Great question, Mark. Do you know? I'm not sure.
Because this, with the trail, this could get kicked out another year from what we were originally thinking. Is that going to be a problem?
No, from the standpoint, you're gonna make an application, you're gonna put this into MnDOT, from that standpoint. And the legislature will be meeting, they haven't funded yet, and even if they do fund, you may not make the short list of actually a fundable project. So I guess you will stay on that list continually, and, then the next 2-year budget comes along, if more money is allocated, and you would likely move up higher on the list, for that. So there's not, they don't, if you're not ready, you can stay on the list and politely tell the state, the county, we're not ready yet. You want to remain on the list, so then when we, the money will go to some other city or county that is ready with the bridge, and then you'll wait your turn in line again.
Okay.
Well,
I'll make a motion that we approve the recommendation for WSN to complete and submit the application for the bridge bond funding to the Minnesota Department of Transportation as presented.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Recommendation from the Public Works Committee, reference the approval of installation and maintenance of mailbox supports on city streets policy. Did everybody get a copy of the policy?
Yeah.
Has everyone had a chance to read a copy of the policy?
I had two questions.
Okay,
Um,
go ahead.
Number one, this only goes into effect when we redo a city street, correct? If you live on a city street now and there's no road work for the next 5 years, this policy does not apply to you. That's the way I read it.
Parts of it do. What it does allow us to do is sell or install those supports if a citizen requests they want the installation, if they're not a part of a road project. I have had one gentleman already contact me asking to have one installed,
So it's
and he's outside of our project areas.
So it's voluntary right now unless it's a part of a road project.
Mostly, yes.
I noticed that there was a listing there of the costs for doing that, for labor and materials and stuff like that. Is this going to be updated every year to make sure we're current on the numbers, or this good for 5 years, or what?
It's an annual cost.
So we'll get an update every year.
If it changes, yes.
Should we put in a disclaimer, subject to escalation or something like
I
that?
thought I did, but certainly we can add it if there's not one present.
Just just because you got me thinking, but if we damage a mailbox and it's not in compliance, this, when we plow,
Right.
this is saying that it's the resident's responsibility to replace it,
Correct.
so.
If it was a non-conforming.
If it was a non-conforming.
Non-conforming, right.
So, okay, I just wanted to verify that.
If you have say, a mailbox with a rotten post, and it gets knocked over by the weight of the snow being pushed off the road.
Yep.
Sorry.
Like mine. Yeah.
Well, I'll move approval of the City of Nisswa installation and maintenance of mailbox supports on city street policy, drafted 1/24/2018.
I will second that. Just for the record, I did talk with, it's noted here, I did talk with the post office, talked to the postmaster here in Nisswa. They are very happy with these policies. They like the new posts because they can actually, their driver, the plow blade can clean under it, and the driver can get up to it when he drops off the mail. And Cross Lakes Public Works Director said it's been a godsend for them. It's really saved them a lot of extra time.
Good.
So, any further comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Recommendation from the Public Works Committee, reference appointment of Dill Stackhour to the Public Works Committee. You should have all received a little bit about Dill and stuff. You'd be a great asset.
I'll make the motion that we accept the recommendation from the Public Works Committee to appoint Dill Stackhour to Public Works Committee.
I'll second that. Just a question. Their term limits, is this a 4-year, 3-year, or 2-year term?
Right now, what we're doing for the Public Works Committee is, because this is new, is we are just appointing for the calendar year 2018. At the end of 18, if things are successful and we like the process, we'll start to stagger terms, yes.
We have a motion, right?
Yep.
In a second. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Will you let Dill know?
Yes, we
He's
will.
roped.
Thank you.
He's in.
Yeah. And 16, approval of resolution to adopt 5-year street reconstruction plan 2018-2022 and call for a public hearing on the 2018 street improvements. So this item I've been working on for the past few days, and I keep stumbling onto more questions than getting things pulled together. So if the council would approve, we will table this item for another time, and we're continuing to work on the bond project and keep it on schedule. But with Heather Casperson and Mary Ipple not being available to help me get through these things in the last couple of days because they've been committed to other things, I want to make sure I'm clear on some details.
I will make the motion that we table the resolution to adopt the 5-year street reconstruction plan 2018 through 2022.
I'll second that, but you should table to a date certain when you table something.
Won't go to old business?
Do we want to table it
To the next meeting, the
Next
next city
council
council meeting? Or 2
For sure,
months?
it would be the next council meeting. I'd prefer, if all things were to work out, that we would maybe meet before then, but definitely to the April meeting, we can plan on that at this time.
Can we say an April meeting?
I'll
or-
amend my motion to adjourn it to the April meeting, or,
Or sooner?
Table it.
We can.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Old business. I see nothing.
I'm old.
Huh?
I'm old.
No. I'm follically challenged. Who's talking and laughing over there? Council reports. Mayor report, I have nothing. Council members, Don?
I have two items. I found out last month or a couple of weeks ago that our wastewater operator received a very prestigious state award. Is that correct? I would think it would be appropriate because he's won this award, I understand, 2 or 3 years in a row. He's pretty good at his job. I would think a letter of not condemnation. Insert the right word in the record there for me. That we should do something and send it a letter to have it signed by all the city council members or something to show our appreciation for his work.
Could I ask that also include the remaining staff in our department? Those gentlemen are on call and they do a lot of the sewer work also, and they contributed a lot to help make that happen.
Well, if it's okay with the council, I would suggest that we lay another thing on Jenny and have her draft a letter for all of us to sign.
I think it'd be a good
Yep.
idea.
I think that's
I-
more than appropriate.
I will let you know that I did talk to Tom and I talked to Mike, and then I made a trip out there and thanked all the guys myself, but
Okay.
good idea.
Another thing which is a little bit different that came up at the last planning and zoning meeting, we were looking at a PUD development in north of the city here along the Paul Bunyan Trail. And the PUD showed 2 entrances, one on Poplar Avenue and one going south and abutting up to what's known today as the Hills Crossing. I'm given to understand that when Hills Crossing was permitted, or I don't know if it's a permit or just how they got what they got, that part of the deal was that they were to submit and allow an easement for a roadway coming down from their north property line, and that was never completed. Either they didn't do it or the city didn't get it done or something, and it's going to be hindering development if this PUD ever goes in. Going to need 2 exits. And I was wondering if we should have the city attorney take a look at the Hills Crossing information to see if there was a proper right-of-way application made, and if the city took it, and if not, what can we do about it? Just a question of inquiry at this time. If it's
I would
okay,
say
it's
that
okay.
makes sense to do.
He can report back next month. I'll give him the... That's the 2 items I had.
Ross?
I got nothing.
Announcements and upcoming meeting dates. Is that just for our benefits, or did you?
It's just for council information. I thought that providing a more comprehensive list of the meetings for the next month would be helpful, and so it's provided there for you.
I'll forget them anyway.
I think you said that, but because it's 5 PM, because you had 6 PM on one sheet and 5 PM for the April 2nd. It's 5 PM.
It's 5 PM now, yes, the updated sheet
I need something.
there tonight, 5 o'clock.
Mayor, if there's nothing else, I'll move adjournment.
There is nothing else, then
I'll second.
adjournment.
So
All in
moved.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.